miss it, Ethan.
What, being in person?
That and the one clap rule.
You missed the one clap rule. You introduced it to literally everything. That's not even debate related now.
But I love the whole idea that like the whole group, the whole room, we've all competed against each other, students and coaches, and yet at the end we all do our one clap to celebrate the winner and we move on.
It's super efficient. It's like one of the largest contributions of the debate world to the real world, from what I can see.
Maybe. I don't know if anybody does it beyond the debate world. But it's still, it just doesn't work over Zoom.
Oh, it's so disoriented over Zoom. You just hear like 50 claps. It's basically just like an applause.
It just doesn't work. But we'll sort it out this year. Surely there will be some new tradition that arrives, and we'll figure out how to make a new normal.
You know what I bet it's going to be? It's going to be that clap reactions button on Zoom, and instead of anybody clapping, we're all going to be muted and just give a virtual like gold hand clap.
Yeah, it's just not the same.
Nope.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to What's the Res? My name is Josh Herring.
My name is Ethan Delves.
And today we are kicking off Season 3 of What's the Res?
Oh, this is going to be a good one.
Can you believe we made it to 3 seasons?
No, I can't. Oh my gosh, this all started like, what, it's been 2 years?
2 years?
Yeah,
since two competitive seasons.
2 competitive seasons.
Because it's not like we didn't start this thing in July or August. And we started in February of 2018, that would have been.
My sophomore year.
Yeah.
2000.
No, it would have been February of 2019, because this will be the 3rd February. But, since then, I've seen 2 other debate podcasts that started and didn't really make it for very long. And there's been another one I've seen started by a couple of small school debaters that are really interested in circuit debate, but they keep episodes coming out. But we made it for 3 seasons. This is kind of insane.
Yeah, it's been a great journey so far. I think a big part of it was just consistency, like choosing that episode publishing schedule and trying to stick to it as best as possible, holding some in the bank for publishing later was definitely a trick we learned later on that we needed. Doing 2 at a time, so 2 episodes in one recording.
Yep. Well, Ethan, take us back to this, since let's reflect for a moment on the story of the podcast.
Okay.
How did we get this thing started?
I was sitting at my dad's house one day on a beanbag chair, and I was thinking about how we could not necessarily get people more excited about debate, but I guess leverage what we know about debate and spread it to as many people as possible, especially since we have a smaller school with a younger debate program. And at the time, we were quite bottom heavy on the debate program with a ton of novices and even middle schoolers, a ton of middle schoolers in that club that were interested in getting their debate journey started, but didn't really know what to do or where to go for the simple fundamentals of debate outside of a 1-week club. And I think that I wanted to start the podcast to help boost those kids up and help them just get a leg up on competition going into like dogwood tournaments and Coolidge tournaments, and just giving them something to go off of so they didn't go in just empty-handed. Yeah,
I remember you told me you wanted to get more people involved.
Yeah.
And I think we talked about 3 or 4 ideas, but the podcast seemed like it was feasible. Mm-hmm. It was dirt cheap to get into this thing.
Oh, yeah.
We had that original setup where it took us like 20 minutes to set up mic stands. And
I have the picture of the first day still. Yep. It's on my phone.
Yep. And at that point, like it was really, we always had to balance our schedules with Noah's as well, because we hadn't yet figured out how to transfer files pretty easily. But we figured out a lot of things between then and now. It's kind of nuts.
Our first mic setup was so iconic because it had these huge poles that we would like screw onto the desk with like a clamp, and it had the pop filter for all those like moments on the mic. We don't have that anymore. Now we just have this little USB plug-in.
Yep, and we can record pretty much anytime, any place, as long as we've got a relatively quiet room. And it's easy enough to send the file over. Noah cleans it up a little bit, puts some beats on it, and we're ready to go.
I know. Isn't it nice to just have someone who knows how to produce beats on the fly like that? And there's the ACs going right now. I'm not even worried, because if he puts a noise gate on it, we'll be just fine.
Yep, he'll clean it up. Our audience won't even notice. It's kind of crazy. Now let's think for a moment about like what. So start us off on this. What have you learned about podcasting and debate through doing this? I want to think about that one too, but start us off. What have you learned about all of this through podcasting?
To start with podcasting, there is one of the essentials that I take away is there is a balance between a free-flowing conversation and needing structure. Like, a regular conversation fits on something like maybe the Joe Rogan podcast where you have 3-hour episodes and you're bringing on like experts in pretty much every field that you can imagine.
Or doing episodes where it's not so much about the experts, but rather like, you know what Joe Rogan's most listened to podcast is?
What?
The one where he smokes a joint with someone with
Elon Musk
on the show. But no, we're not going to do that. Like,
no.
that doesn't fit what our show is. That's for sure.
But I think both of us learned, you could attest to this too, is that you need structure for a podcast. You need a direction, a small outline of where you're going. But there's definitely something to letting a conversation flow freely, especially when you're doing interviews with experts. Like, it's okay to go down a couple of rabbit holes and examine an idea closer, and as long as you stay on track overall. I think learning to properly balance structure and free flow is really important.
Which is, especially when you've got a guest on the show, I mean, you never quite know where those conversations are going to go. I find it's pretty helpful to have an end goal in mind. And usually I'll do enough background research on the guest that I sort of know what topics that person is able to talk about, and we'll steer a direction back towards one of those. I know I went on one other podcast where the host hated the idea of structure.
And yeah, I know you told me about that.
It was so irritating. I couldn't figure out what the point of anything we were talking about was.
That was a whole evening for you, wasn't it?
Well, that guy, his episode length was like 2 hours. And I was like, dude, no one wants to listen to this. So maybe people do, but I agree with you about you've got to have that ebb and flow. Because that's one thing you pushed me on, was making this more conversational. And I think that keeps our listeners engaged in what we're doing too. Yeah,
and another thing is, which I guess could kind of fit into debate as well, is you don't always need to be right about everything. Mm-hmm. And actually, I'll rephrase that. There's no way to be right about everything. And I think that applies more to, or I was about to say more to debate, but honestly, everything we talk about on the podcast is debate related. We can't be right about everything. So like, and now at this point, if I say something dumb on the podcast, I know it's going to get downloaded by people in Russia and the UK, like you were telling me earlier, and like Wales and all these places that we have listeners from. And it's just going to be that way. Like, it's basically just, I'm getting something wrong just as everyone else does. It's just that it's going to be broadcasted to a slightly larger audience.
Well, doing this requires at least a little bit of humility, because you kind of have to just recognize at one point, one of two things is going to happen. Either we're going to say dumb things, or someone is going to download random clips of what we've said and smash them all together into dumb things, whether we actually said them or not. We've had both on this show.
I know the people who have done that personally are not listening to this episode right now. I'd highly doubt it, but if you are, I know exactly who you are. And they made this really funny clip of you saying that you're in the NFL, and it had a beat over it, and it was perfectly synchronized with the beat. That was hilarious.
Well, I know there's that, and you never got tired of the recommend tenders. I think was the line from our first episode.
No, that wasn't the first one. That was at least 10. I think 10.
Somewhere
around
in the first
10.
season,
yes,
it was that line, and I meant to say recommendation.
But you said
it
recommend
just did
tenders.
Not come out right.
I was like, you just been to PDQ or something, because something
right.
was on your mind.
So we've now produced over 120 episodes. We just crossed 15,000 downloads. We've had listeners in over 50 different countries, and we've had people, I think, from every state in the union listening to our show. We've done episodes on local resolutions, regional, national circuits, competition, all kinds of stuff. Ethan, do you have any favorite episodes that we've done?
The Truth is the Cornerstone of Society one, number 12. I'll never forget that one, because I was, I woke up at like 6 a.m., I think. It was an early one, and it was on FaceTime or Google Hangouts or something, and you called me over break. And I was rushing to read that article that you sent me. Like, look, this was also not even close to my best episode, because I barely understood anything that you sent me. And
I thought that was the Jordan Peterson episode.
No, we talked about Peterson a lot on that episode.
We did it on some other. It was on something else though. We read some article for it.
But that reminds me.
That was where you were like talking about 12 rules for life and lots of Jordan Peterson's life advice.
I think that flows into a lot of episodes we've done. But it was either, I'm pretty sure, number 12. I just know I like that one. It has the word truth in the title. I liked that. Our analysis on the Peterson-Zizek debate was awful. It was just epic.
Oh, that was so much fun.
It was fun, but watching the debate was even cooler. Like, right beforehand, I was on the floor. I had at least 7 pages of notes on that thing. Like, that was such a good episode. What's one of your favorites?
Oh, man. We've done so many now. I don't know. The Zizek Peterson was a lot of fun. I've enjoyed meeting lots of people in order to do this. I think if I had to pick a favorite, I'd actually pick a pairing because it showed me different sides of the debate world that I don't naturally gravitate towards. The first one I'm thinking of is the episode with Crawford.
Right.
It was kind of after going to the Harvard tournament showed me a whole new side of what national circuit competition could be. And then getting to really interview him about being a coach and the program he's developed was really cool. But then I think it was a month later, I did an episode with Adam Jacoby that was really one where in that episode, I think you liked it a lot because I remember having you listen to the file before we posted it because I wasn't sure. I felt like we were very much at odds with what our vision of debate was and what debate should do. But doing that episode, I felt slightly, it was the only interview I've done where I felt slightly tense about what I was interviewing the guest on and trying to figure out how do I politely respond to what the guest has said and yet indicate that I'm really not completely in agreement there. Having to navigate that was really interesting. And I think it forced me to kind of wrestle with a lot more of what was going on in the debate world. So
that was a stressful episode to make, I imagine. And trying to respectfully structure your responses and your questions in a way that doesn't look like you're trying to corner him on your show, and that you're genuinely trying to find out what he believes about debate.
Exactly. But doing all of that forced me to it forced me to kind of wrestle with a more complex view of the activity as a whole. So really, I think that's one of my favorite parts of doing this is how much it's allowed me to really see there's all these different facets and people bring all these different purposes and they find debate helpful in a whole bunch of different ways. It's not just that, you agree with me on X, so therefore you love debate. We actually have a whole bunch of reasons why we love debate. I also love the fact that we've gotten to meet so many different people.
Yeah, that's been an amazing part of this entire thing.
I was looking back at season 2. Season 2 had, I think, 50-something episodes before we did summer episodes. If we include summer, we're up at right about 60 episodes total in season 2, which is kind of close to what I was hoping we would get. I was aiming for 84 episodes in season 2.
Wow.
Which was way too ambitious. But we've had a ton of visitors on this show. I know we're both looking at the list. Anybody in particular from the list that strikes you as we should mention?
So I just really enjoyed the episode with Nick Higgins. Getting to meet him, he's a super cool guy, and his view on that was about the protests that we were one of the many things we asked him about. Super cool perspective on that. Roberto Salinas, awesome episode. That was really cool. He had a lot of really good information for whatever resolution we were asking about at the time. Was it a resolution or
it was a resolution, but it was also I'd have to go back and look at the title. I think that was it had to have been a resolution because it was our first episode kicking off season 2.
Right.
And I remember we interviewed him when he was in Mexico City. So that was our very first international interview.
Right, yeah. And I think it would be inappropriate to leave Patrick the Nihilist off the list.
Oh, he's on the list.
Yeah, I know, but he's
letter H.
mentioned because I know viewers can't see the outline.
That's true.
Those episodes were awesome, and they went long, and we had no structure whatsoever. And I think we both ended up being in nothingness and not getting past the translator's note in the beginning for our next episode.
Pretty much, we never actually did anything with that, and at this point, I don't know that we will, but maybe we'll get back to that someday. But
that was cool.
And Patrick, we were interviewing, he was somewhere, he lives in London, right? Or is he just somewhere generally in the UK?
I believe he's in London.
I think he's in London.
But I think it's London City. There's a difference between London and London City is what he was telling me.
Okay. Good. Oh, we had, where is Dr. Spalding from? Or where was he when you interviewed him? Because
oh, man.
I remember you landed that one. You reached out to him off of a random think tank.
It was it may have been Washington Post. It may have been it may have been a think tank. I don't know. I don't remember where he was, but I do remember that was for nuclear arsenals for LD. And I read his article. It was was it? Yes, I believe it was for nuclear arsenals. And he had this really great article just laying out these exact numbers of, I don't know, it was just a very data heavy sort of thing. And I was like, we've got to get this guy on. He obviously could impact that out a little bit for us and help us connect what it means to the evidence that he provides.
It still amazes me how many times one of us has reached out to a random person. Not so much like a direct connection, but do you remember Dr. Aldis from Harvard?
Yes. My gosh, that was insane. I was nervous on that call. I was a little nervous. Great. Well, he was just ridiculously kind, and I think it was after we had done about 45 minutes of an episode that he told us he was a former LDer. And suddenly it's like, oh, this is why he said yes, because it was his way of giving back to the community. And he had said he already had debaters email him before with these questions. I'm like, look, why don't we just ask them all on this podcast episode?
That's so great. We had Annalicia Vamonde Stoles helping us with the Venezuela resolution, with kind of the insider's take on here's what the Venezuelan government looks like. Let's see. We had Paul Mueller from King's College in New York. Mm-hmm. He's come on a couple times, I think. No, he's only been on once. He did an episode with me about the COVID and economics pretty early on in all of that.
And Nathan Orlando. He was so helpful for the Nuclear Arsenals one. Mm-hmm. He laid it out great. I loved that episode.
There's something about being able to listen to the person who has read everything on a topic.
Yeah.
And I didn't know it when I asked him, but that was one of his areas of interest for his dissertation. So he had read very, very thoroughly on that. We can't forget, I think our second most popular episode is from this season is the one I did with Bob Luddy. When he came on and talked about debate and economics and all kinds of stuff. I know he wants to come back and do an episode on international economics, so we need to make that happen this season.
And I remember that episode, the introduction beat is my favorite beat on any of the episodes that we have. So if you want to go listen to it, I don't know the number, but it says interview with Bob Luddy on it. That was, Noah actually made that beat at Coolidge.
Did he?
Yeah, he was making it. It was like 10 p.m. at night, and he was like, what do you think of this? And then I said, add a cow noise, and then we ended up not doing that. We were just messing around with
cow noise?
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
Noah makes all sorts of stuff.
Hey, that's wonderful. He started doing some others for a different podcast too, because he's been helping me with the Developing Classical Thinkers podcast for school, and he's done beats for those for a while now. Okay, but we've had lots of guests in season 2. I'm sure we'll have lots of guests in season 3. Ethan, what kind of episodes are we going to end up doing in season 3?
A lot of technique, advice, and resolution analysis episodes. Because I know we both have a lot tighter schedules now. We're going to try to get the most important stuff out first, mm-hmm. and anything else that we can do, we'll do. But I know, especially for you, have tons of new responsibilities that you didn't have last year, that you were trickling into last year. So your time is extremely limited. And let me actually just put this out there. The vast majority of names on this list you had to interview because I was doing something, and you completely carried. Like for season 2, you had so many interviews. It was at least 1 or 2 a week where we needed an interview to go with a resolution, and you could come through for it. And I know now I want to help relieve some of that burden because you need you could list off your responsibilities if you want. You have a ton of new responsibilities. I have some more to take on, but it's just another year of high school for me, pretty much.
Well, see, you say that, but hopefully you'll agree with me that senior year is a little bit special. It's a culmination. It's not junior year in terms of difficulty, and I think you'll find there are going to be more seasons where you have less things going on than there were in junior year. Especially as we get closer to graduation, like your classes will sort of taper off. But it's not a joke either. And
I've realized that.
Don't catch senioritis too early is my usual advice to seniors, because they typically start the year with senioritis and then flunk their first test and realize, dang, I haven't graduated yet.
Yeah, I'm not catching senioritis. I'm just going to try to avoid senioritis and COVID altogether.
Those are both great goals, but you are right about my schedule too, because this year the biggest thing is on my end is being dean of students, and I'm taking on a lot of our college advising and then overseeing extracurriculars and clubs, and my goal in that role is to really help I want our students to be proud of graduating from Thales Academy and helping that to be a positive thing for them, which is not always, I think we've always wanted that for our school, but we've not always had that happen. And that's not necessarily something you can necessarily do action A to get result B. But I think it is something we can move towards. But I'm also teaching philosophy. I'm also coaching our program.
And senior thesis coaching or advising.
And advising four folks on senior thesis, including you.
Right.
So hopefully you'll be an expert on something by the end of the year.
Hopefully.
All that to mean, one of the things that we'll be doing this year, we'll still be doing a lot of our same type of episodes, but long-term listeners, assuming that we have to have some long-term listeners, because we do manage to have between 60 and 100 listens per episode, and they do usually trickle up to about 100 over the course, or about 200 over the course of a year. Long-term listeners, you probably should just be aware that we will be a little less regular with episode posting this year. We are still committed, as Ethan mentioned. We'll do the occasional technique or advice show. We will do resolution analysis episodes within 1 week of resolutions being released by the NSDA or by the Coolidge Foundation, or a new one we found last year, the Ronald Reagan Presidential Foundation. They also have a debate program that has both a regional and a nationals resolution, so we'll do episodes on those this year, hopefully. But those will really be, we'll be looking to do kind of one primary one on there. And if we can get to it, we will also do expert interviews that supplement our analysis. We'll get some topic experts in on that. I also would love for us to continue interviewing leaders in the debate community. I've got 2 of those that are lined up. We just need to find the right date. So if anybody listening in the North Carolina circuit, you hopefully know Michelle Boswell. She is the head of the program at Cumberland Polytechnic. She also is the director of the Dogwood Speech and Debate League. She's agreed to come on and do an episode and talk about her story in this. I've also got sort of agreement from some of the folks from the Reagan Foundation to come on and do an episode. But all that to say, we are probably going to be slowing down our frequency of posting. We tried at the beginning of season 2. I set us a ridiculous pace. I mean, at the time we were trying to, you remember we were doing 3 episodes a week?
Yeah.
We about died.
But part of that appeals to me still. Like part of, you know, I always bite off more than I can chew. And then sometimes I pull through at the last minute, and then sometimes it's like, uh-oh.
It's like, I tend to do the same thing. I tend to overcommit, and I sort of just hope that everyone's okay when things slip through the cracks, because I'm like, I accepted like 15 responsibilities. You should just know that I'm going to drop one of them. Well, in all honesty,
we're a lot alike in that.
We probably are,
analysis.
but we shouldn't do that. We should rather just, as the Gospels put it, let your yes be yes and your no be no.
Oh yeah, that was in the Sermon on the Mount too. I remember reading that.
Yep. I think really hitting those, specifically committing to those resolution episodes and trying to hit some of those other ones when time permits and occasion permits. We can definitely do that. That's achievable. So, long-term listeners, we're still in for this. We're still going to make season 3, but it's probably going to be a more limited season 3. I suspect we'll be more in the somewhere between 20 to 40 episodes this year instead of 40 to 80 episodes this year.
Again, that sounds like a challenge, but like not like challenging as in like bet. Like I think we could do more than that, but we're going to be conservative with the estimate.
That's great, but at least then we will be surpassing our expectations for ourselves.
Right.
Okay. Oh, I did also want to mention, just in case, I don't know why any new listeners would listen to this kickoff episode, since we've been more. If we were going to spend hours editing this, we could make this a clips episode and insert things from others, but we're not going to do that. If there are any new listeners, particularly any novices for the 2020-2021 season, just do know that we have made a lot of episodes that are intended for novices. So if you go through our back catalog, you'll find we have episodes dealing with argument structure on the claim warrant impact episode. We do a lot of Lincoln Douglas paradigm episodes. We've got episodes on every major style of debate, kind of defining it as a genre of debate and what's unique about it. I remember we did a definitions episode, Once Upon a Time.
Oh man, good days.
That was, yep. Okay, yeah. And so with that, let's kind of start wrapping this episode up. So Ethan, what are you most excited about for the 2020-2021 competitive year?
Getting off of Zoom calls. And honestly, some of the things from junior year were so exciting to me that I want to have those experiences and more of them. Like, it would be amazing to go back to Harvard and in person or some large travel tournament it would be awesome for senior year. And it's understandable if it can't happen, and at least I already got to go in junior year, you know? But that was just so cool. That was such a cool trip and it's such a cool experience. I would love to do that again. I'm disappointed that Yale probably is not going to happen.
It's online at this point.
Off of Zoom calls or whatever they're going to do it on. So I was looking forward to that, but that one's not going to happen. So still have my fingers crossed for Harvard. I'm super excited for Cavalier, although is that online?
That's online.
I'm still excited because that's a good tournament. Again, disappointed that it's online, but I think everyone else probably is as well, unless people like being in the comfort of their own home, but then you get Wi-Fi problems and that messes with things. But like I did today, where I just completely exited school for like an hour and had nothing to do.
By the time you got to debate, your Wi-Fi was working.
Yeah, that's all that matters, right? But yeah, so super excited for Cavalier tournament and super excited for Harvard, be they in person or online. And I also, as sort of one of my ending notes, after I go to college, I still want to do What's the Res. I still want to do resolution analysis and interviews, paradigm episodes. Like, I helped start this and I don't want to leave it when I leave, I guess is what I'm saying.
Well, you're officially on the record saying that, so no, I won't hold
Bind
you
me to
that.
it. Bind it.
Well, no, I won't hold you to it. I mean, we'll have to. I have had in my mind that we will have to have that very clear conversation at the end of this year.
That's so sad. Don't put it like that.
Well, I mean, like, it's not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, if you want to keep it going, we can do that. If What's the Res has a natural life cycle that ends at your senior year, it is much better to just put a stake in it and kill this thing than to let it limp along.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, when I say don't put things so harshly and you just go down the real aggressive route, here's what I'm saying is that season 1 we were both super active and we saw some of our largest growth near the end of season 1, beginning of season 2. Season 2, you carried hard because it was junior year, and I was like, oh my gosh, what happened to my life? This isn't the first half of high school anymore. And I made it onto all the resolution analysis. I made it on. It's a couple extra interviews. I managed to get a couple of my solo episodes in. But I want my commitment to season 3 to look a lot different than it did to season 2. I want to be consistent in appearance on episodes and make sure that I keep my mind sharp by talking about these things. And my understanding of resolutions and what the experts are saying, I want to stay in the loop and give it a solid commitment for senior year. I want to be on most of the episodes and keep to that.
Excellent. I think those are all great goals. Yeah, I'll save my Stranger Things analogy about and maybe whether or not we should continue this post your high school graduation for the end of this season, and we'll just
I hope
leave
you remember.
that. I hope so too. I might not, but I probably will. I like that analogy. Now, I'm hoping this year, I'm very excited about some of our new novices. We've got some great novices in the class, some people who seem like they have a natural disposition for evidence-driven argumentation, so I think that's going to be really good. I'm also thrilled that both you and another one of our seniors, Savannah, are in your senior year and are sticking with this. We've had some changes from who I thought would make up our senior debate team, but you and Savannah are both there, which I'm thrilled about. Honestly, I know you're ready to be done with Zoom, which is very understandable. I'm honestly kind of excited about online competition because it helps us in a couple ways. There are a couple other possibilities that we can explore. Really, there's 3. I haven't told anybody on our team about the third one yet this year, but I want to see what actually shows up in tournament invitations. But in our area, Public Forum and Lincoln Douglas are the 2 debate styles that everyone does. No one does policy. No one does worlds. No one does parliamentary debate. We really could compete via Zoom or NSDA's campus platform or whatever platform the tournament happens on. We can compete at all kinds of tournaments in a bunch of different events that we've never done before. I also think we can. Last year, we were rather limited by logistics to one really big tournament. It was the Harvard tournament. This year, we can compete in a few really big tournaments, and the cost is lower than it would be if we were if we were actually flying and lodging and all those things. Now, of course, we don't get to eat dinner together. We don't get to do the planes together. We don't get crazy pictures together. There's all kinds of things we're missing out. It does up our possibility of actually being at more tournaments, which is rather interesting. So I'm with you. I really hope Harvard happens in person. I would love for us to go back and actually know the lay of the land this time. I felt like I was always in danger of getting lost, and fortunately we had Mr. Cynical around to figure out why my phone wasn't working and get directions
the signal.
going.
And in that elementary school where I was debating for those days, the staircases. I was walking like 3 flights just to get to my room, and it was probably the best exercise I got all of February.
So all that to say, listeners, it's going to be a great year. We are kind of excited about what's coming ahead. The resolutions the NSDA has already published are looking really interesting. So we hope all NSDA members are voting for your preferred resolution in the voting cycles each month. And we'll look forward to being with you throughout the year.
I'm excited. And until next time, work hard, speak well, and see you.